There was no diagnosis, at least in our community, of ADHD. There was no one around you who had it. It wasn't a thing. It was, you're a space cadet.
His working memory works so completely different than mine.
Yes.
Like the second he pours the cup of coffee is the only thing that exists. So his arm just kind of goes up here and the milk goes away. But then now we know that if the keys are gone, let's look in the fridge.
From the news team at LinkedIn, I'm Jessi Hempel, and this is Hello Monday. Today we're talking about ADHD. That's Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder. Now, this is a huge topic of conversation in my own house. My wife was diagnosed with it in college, and my son, he's 7, he has it too. And I'm just here to tell you that this is why every shoe in our house is lost and every sock is mismatched, among so many other things. And in recent years, the attention that ADHD has gotten has grown as we've come to understand it better and understand exactly how many people are impacted by it. Look, I know a lot of you are also impacted by ADHD because you've written to me and you have asked for this conversation. And who better to have it with than today's guests? In the studio, we have Penn and Kim Holderness. Now, you probably know them even if you don't know their names. I first learned about them from the Christmas Jammies video. Gosh, it's probably a decade ago because now those little kids in that video are teenagers, even heading off to college. You know, Kim and Penn are entertainers on the internet. Really, they make incredible, funny parody videos. They make their own music. You can find them on Instagram and TikTok. And they also speak about the things that really matter to them. Now, Penn has ADHD, so does his son, Penn Charles, or PC as they call him. And so about a year ago, they released their first book on the topic. Now, this fall, they are out with a second book, a children's book, All You Can Be with ADHD. It's a great book. I recently read it with my own son, Jude. Now they join us in the studio to unpack all things ADHD. Here's Penn and Kim Holderness. I want to go back to where your journey with ADHD started. Not officially, but unofficially.
Okay, so my childhood.
Yeah, there you go.
I was pretty good at the test-taking part of elementary school. So I wasn't a big cut-up. Like, I didn't run around. I was fidgety, but not rambunctious. I guess that's the term for it. I had my biggest troubles in the playground. So the social side of it and also the emotional side of it. I couldn't really hold a standard linear conversation, even like into middle school and high school years. And then also like when things went wrong or I got picked on, which sometimes happens when you're a kid in the 70s.
Yes, truth.
Not to date myself, but I had some pretty severe emotional flooding, shame, like wondering what was wrong with me, feeling like I was broken because, people would make fun of me. This is a crazy thing. I would chew on my shirt. It was like a fidgeting release. And so there would be like a big circle of saliva around my shirt by the time it got to be noon because I didn't like gum. So that was like the way that I did it. And by the way, like so many other ADHDers have come forward.
I mean, my
and said that this
7-year-old
happens.
shirt is we do not have a collar left on the shirt.
Okay.
Yeah.
There was no book or explanation for any of this stuff.
Sure.
But so my mom acted as my executive functioner for the things that fell through the cracks, made sure I brushed my teeth. If I didn't clean my room, she did it for me.
I want to stop on that word a second.
Yeah.
Executive function was not a term that I threw about at a table even 5 years ago.
You're right.
And now we're all sort of expected to understand what it is.
Yeah, sorry.
100%.
Is that a word that you are familiar with?
Also new. I mean, we wrote our first book, ADHD is Awesome. We really were digging in. And the thing I think I learned the most was, and it was so unexpected for me, is that the ADHD diagnosis, we don't talk enough about the emotional overwhelm and the emotional component to ADHD. And it really is an executive functioning issue. Not the attention. There's plenty of attention. You know, your kid probably has lots of attention, can pay lots of attention to the thing he's interested in.
He's so bright.
So bright. But it's just, focusing that attention. But now executive functioning, I live with that every single day. But no, it's like a kid that went to school in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
No, I have no idea. But now I know executive functioning means being able to just get through your daily life without constant reminders.
It is that ability to get your teeth brushed every day.
Put on shoes before you walk out the door.
Bring your homework or your lunch or your water bottle or your backpack to school.
And then, you, as a mom, my son is now in high school, and I'm thinking ahead to, okay, then there's college. When I'm not there, what happens then? And then hopefully he's getting a job. And so what happens then? And I am happy to report, Penn is a living example. A lot of these things, most of them improve with age.
I love hearing that.
Yes, most of them improve with age, but Penn works really hard.
Yeah.
There's a million alarms on his phone. There's notes everywhere. There's places where he puts things. I mean, it's a whole system in our house.
But I want to go back to that moment in your childhood when the executive function systems were not working, and you reference shame, which is such a terrible attribute of ADHD.
Yeah, it's not something you did. It's who you are, right?
Yeah.
That makes it even tougher. It's a deeper kind of identity issue that people with ADHD have, largely because of a lack of understanding.
Yeah.
This kid that you're asking about, there was no diagnosis, at least in our community, of ADHD. There was no one around you who had it. It wasn't a thing. It was, you're a space cadet. You are a problem child. You are, for me, I was a crybaby.
Ooh.
That was a term I got a lot, and did not understand until very recently how that applies to ADHD, but it does.
Big time.
Yeah.
So you went on into college before you got a diagnosis. How did the diagnosis come about?
So first of all, I went on academic probation twice. At
college.
Yeah, because my executive functioner, my mother, was not around to
make sure he did his homework.
To make sure I did my homework and turned it in and all those other things. And so a lot of things slip through the cracks. The other thing that happens in college is you go from a classroom of 20, 30 kids to an assembly hall of 400 kids.
Right.
And that is not conducive to our brain. The total lack of interaction, just having to sit and listen to a lecture for an hour, at least for my type of ADHD, it was very difficult. So anyway, I'm at my grandmother's funeral while I'm in college. And our family has this meeting because it's grandmother's gone. What are we going to do about the beach trip? What are we going to do about how are we going to stay together? And it was this really kind of sad moment. I was pretty overwhelmed, and I started thinking about all the good memories with my grandmother. And as it was happening, my Aunt Zell goes, "Hey, Penn, I'm really sorry, but none of us can focus because you're chewing on that used fly swatter." So without having any idea that I was doing it, I picked up a fly swatter, which this is Eastern North Carolina. There's a lot of flies.
Yeah.
And I'd put it in my mouth and I was chewing on it.
Yeah.
And that was a level of, they all laughed.
Oral release.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They all laughed. I'm glad they laughed. I was obviously humiliated.
Of course.
And ashamed because this was at a funeral. And that was sort of the tipping point. I've got to go see. So I drove myself to a doctor. And he's like, "Yeah, you have a scorching case of this."
Well, how did knowing that shift things for you? Or did it?
So it helped a little bit, but I'm going to tell you why it didn't help. And it's because of the former way that it was diagnosed, which was a medical model. ADHD used to be diagnosed with, what are your symptoms? Okay. Let's give you a test. You've got it. Here are some pills that are going to fundamentally change your personality and fix this. No books. No, hey, maybe you should see a coach. No, hey, there's some systems that you should probably put in place, behavioral interventions. Just, here's your pills. See you later. Give me a call. And so that got me through college.
Yeah.
Wild side effect to the medication. It was the only year I ever took medication for ADHD. Because I was a musician and I was a creative, and I used to always hear songs in my head whenever stuff went on. And I don't know what happened. I got through school, but I stopped hearing the music in my head.
Oh,
Isn't that weird?
That must have been a little bit heartbreaking.
I felt like a different person.
Yeah.
But I think people around me appreciated that I was letting them finish their sentences. Right? It's a tough little thing to juggle.
It's the tension of trying to manage it, right? And my wife also had a really difficult time with the medication. It just made her feel totally tapped out and wired all the time.
Okay.
And so did not take it for that long. But then the feedback that you get when you do take it from the world around you can often be like, okay, well, you're following the rules a little bit better. We can cope with you better.
Yeah.
The thing is, we don't want to cope with anybody. We want everybody around us to be able to express themselves in such a way that we benefit from their best traits.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to guess that ADHD was some of the fuel that has allowed you to express your best traits.
Yes. And I figured that out pretty quickly afterwards. I got out of college and all my friends had jobs. Like, we're moving to New York to do finance, or, I'm going to law school. I went to work at the Macaroni Grill.
He got extra tips because he would sing Happy Birthday in Italian, so he would make tips.
Okay, so at what point did you come into his life, and at what point did you learn about the ADHD, and were they close together?
He ended up getting a job in TV, which is perfect.
Yeah.
Sort of job for an ADHD brain because it's new every day, it's new every minute. We met, we were both local news reporters, and I think the things that I was attracted to in Penn.
Yeah.
I mean, he was spontaneous and, it was life of the party. And he said he's a very extroverted version of ADHD, but all of those things that I love and was attracted to were very much part of his ADHD brain. And I remember he's like, I have ADHD because I bought you like a watch or something. Remember I bought you a watch like first Christmas we were together and you put it on top of your car and then you drove to my apartment and you're like, oh, look, it's still here.
It was a really nice watch too.
And he's like, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, I've got ADHD. So that was, I had really no awareness other than that. And I will say in the beginning, especially, it's like, oh, Penn, it's like very charming.
Sure.
But, very quickly you have kids and people would joke, you have 3 kids. And I would not laugh. I'm like, no, he is a grown-ass adult. He can handle himself. But it took, I think, when kids came along, the executive functioning was really challenged for him. And I will give him a lot of credit. He himself dug in and he himself did the work to try to, contribute and, show up.
There were some relationship breakthroughs once we started actually studying ADHD. So to kind of fast forward through all of the things that we wrote about in our first book, all the things that you see in this children's book were things that we've discovered in the last 5 years.
Our family.
Like our family. Before that, I was certainly aware that ADHD was useful to my job. And so we put some content out on the internet about ADHD, songs, skits, and they resonated really positively with people who were watching our videos because they're all feeling shame. They don't hear a positive side to any of this. And the point I was trying to make is like, okay, the music's in my head again. I have a job where I got to keep people entertained for a few seconds. That's perfect for someone with ADHD.
Yeah.
And I'm, we're relatively successful. And I think that was a nice kind of thing for millions of people to hear, which led to the book. And what was going on behind the scenes at that point was I had small kids and things were starting to fall through the cracks as a parent.
Yes.
And I felt ashamed. She understandably, because she didn't understand it either, felt disrespected, right? At first.
No, 100%. Yeah. I would say for the thing that is challenging as somebody who doesn't have ADHD is the things that are so easy for me, like putting laundry in the hamper.
Yeah. Closing
the refrigerator door, putting milk in the refrigerator as opposed to the cabinet with the coffee mugs. Like, that's very easy for me to do. So I'm like, why? This is so simple. What are you doing? Like, you're being lazy. But now, people have been doing research on this for several decades now. So we were just, hadn't really taken the time to dive in. I'm like, oh, his working memory works so completely different than mine.
Yes.
Like the second, he pours the cup of coffee is the only thing that exists. So his arm just kind of goes up here and the milk goes away. But then now we know, and we know that, if the keys are gone, let's look in the fridge because you come home, you're instantly hungry. Like you can kind of trace things back. But now that I know that he's not doing it on purpose.
There it is.
It shifts.
It shifts. It doesn't mean that you get a free pass. In our family, it's the explanation, not the excuse.
Yeah. Well, and you're hitting on something so core, whether it is to a romantic partnership, a family partnership, or to the people that you're spending your day with. Like the better we understand each other, the more we can tolerate our shortcomings and plan for them in order to be able to experience our gifts, right? Easier said than done.
Easier said than done.
For so many families, certainly for our family, the diagnosis of a child is like a Pandora's box for a parent. I mean, my wife hadn't really thought about her ADHD since college. I mean, sure, I noticed it all the time because the groceries just didn't get to the house from the car, or the, such and such a bill just didn't get paid. And I just understood, like, her brain's not ever going to do those things. Not worth being mad about. But it was static. And then our son was diagnosed, and my wife had the experience of, oh my gosh, I have the same brain as him. There's so much more to understand here.
Yeah.
And I'm curious what it was like for you when Penn was diagnosed.
When PC?
Yeah, when our son.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay.
No. His name is Penn. He's not a junior. So it's like Penn Charles and PC. Anyway, we had already been doing the deep dive into the research. We were already thinking like, oh, if we don't understand this, maybe other families don't understand this. Maybe we should write a book. We assumed our son had ADHD. And I was like, I don't even know if a diagnosis is worth it. I don't want him to feel labeled. I don't want him to feel boxed in. But then, the school kind of needs the documentation of everything. So we went through the formal diagnosis process. And the news was delivered to us as if it was like this really daunting medical condition.
Are you sitting down?
Yeah. Your son has ADHD. And so even though he was born into a house that celebrates it, he and I got into the car and I'm like, okay, we got this. Like, we're going to reframe. Yes, there's things that are going to be hard for you, but you already know that. And these are the great things. And I was like spinning it. And then we get in the house and I had texted Penn's waiting and he's like,
welcome to the club.
He's like, welcome to the club. High five. You're just like me. And it was instantly, I could see he felt like he could own it.
Yeah.
As opposed to like wearing this label as, as a deficit.
Yeah. The language is tricky. The way we medicalize it is tricky. There's not a one-size-fits-all approach to treatment.
Right.
And it can feel very heavy.
Very heavy. And, and that being said, I will say this about, your wife and Penn's experience with medicine. That was a long time ago. There's a lot of different medicines out there.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of different options for that. So we gave our son the option, and sometimes he does and sometimes he doesn't, and he finds it very helpful. So, but we had to kind of like poke around there and find one that really worked.
I love that. I love knowing that. I'm curious how we help to promote the idea that ADHD comes with gifts and that we can actually, instead of trying to conform everyone to the same system, we can sort of break open the system and allow people to work differently.
I mean, let's start with some simple vocabulary, right? When you have a child who can't get their face out of a telephone, what am I, 90? A cell phone. You say, oh man, that kid's fixated, right?
Yeah.
They're really fixated.
Yeah.
And then they find something that they really care about and love that's productive. Say like, I don't know, assembling a car engine or whatever. ADHD brains are crazy. They can do amazing things if they care about them.
Yeah.
That's called hyperfocus.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yes.
Same exact thing, right? If you have the ability to fixate on something that's a waste of your time, you have a special secret power ability to do the same thing on something productive.
Yes.
And it's just a fact.
We hear a lot about the negatives, kids especially.
Yeah.
There's statistics. What is it? They hear
10,000 corrections.
They'll hear 10,000 corrections in their childhood. And it's always like, oh, don't forget this, do this, sit there, sit down.
So we're very quick to mention all of those, but we don't necessarily mention like when they're doing stuff that other people can't do.
So we've worked hard and I do this still like with Penn. Like he'll come up with something like wildly creative, write a song in 30 seconds. I'm like, I hope you know that that's not a normal thing. Like that's your brain is special. So we'll catch our son too.
Yeah.
He joined an improv comedy group and he has like the funniest like improvisational jokes. And I'm like, that was so special. I could never have done that. So finding out where your coworker, where your kid, where your partner is killing it, and then like leaning in there. But it is hard for kids in this traditional school model, right? Where like this one type of learner is celebrated. And teachers are doing awesome and they're doing the best they can. But I think the more we can realize in the classroom and in the work setting, the more we can like celebrate these differences, we're all going to benefit.
Right. And that idea of catering to the things that we are interested in already. Right? That's such a gift.
We have, I mean, we're on LinkedIn right now. We're talking about jobs, right?
Yeah.
So we have heard so many cool stories of sort of the tailor-made jobs for people with ADHD.
Yeah.
Let's start with saying there is no one job, right? It has to fit your interest-based nervous system. That's what someone with ADHD has. They like things that are challenging, new or novel, and of personal interest. I think it's safe to say that most human beings, those without ADHD, feel that way. But it's, I think, especially important to tailor those three things to someone with ADHD, or they just tend to have a lot more trouble.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, it's spontaneously writing stuff as often as I possibly can and keeping people interested and entertained. There was a guy who came to one of our signings from our last book who was a landscaper, and that did not fit his interest-based nervous system because there were these long projects with several-week lead times.
Yeah.
And so he took on a job to just mow lawns. And do a bunch of different ones in a day.
He would do like lawns and fertilizing. So he's like, I could gamify and I can get like 20 done in one day as opposed to sitting in one, on one project for weeks at a time. And then we were on a webinar and I said, oh, you're probably not going to find a lot of ADHD tax attorneys. And sure enough, I'm an ADHD tax attorney because this person finds it thrilling.
Right.
To dig into the laws and the policy on it. And so I'm like, wow, that is,
stand corrected.
I stand corrected.
Okay, so you have been deep into the research on ADHD, and you have been deep into conversation with your audience about ADHD. What's your understanding of why this is a cultural moment where we're all able to talk about this? I'm
guessing it's because we've reached a critical mass. Where it's not just a couple of kids in a classroom. I also think, and this may not be a popular opinion, but as far as children are concerned, COVID outed a lot of ADHD in children and in adults. We've heard that from people.
Yeah.
It is like sitting on a Zoom meeting it basically outed.
It broke us.
It broke all of us, and it also outed some of us as like, this is a real, when it comes to attention, this is a real issue with my executive functioning.
Yeah.
So I don't think that helped. I also think social media is this incredibly powerful space where 80% of the creative people there have ADHD and just don't know it yet. And this like perfectly fits their interest-based nervous system. I'm only saying that based on like, we go to these things with other social media people and they all just come up to us and they're like, yeah.
Same personality profile?
That's very similar. Like that's me. Not all of them, but so many of them do. Yeah. And now they have voices. And the ability to kind of talk about it. And social media also finds a way of taking an algorithm and bringing people of a certain type together.
Yes.
So that probably makes a difference.
There is, I think that social media, not all amazing, but I think the gift has been normalizing conversations about mental health in general. Mm-hmm. And I do think during COVID, parents had an opportunity to see how their kids' learning styles for the first time and very quickly identified, oh, we have a problem here.
Yeah.
And then what we've talked to so many, therapists and psychiatrists and people doing research as the moms and dads were filling out the form like, okay, for their kids,
right.
They're like, that's not normal. That's what I do. And so they're getting diagnosed as well. Mm-hmm. So I think that just kind of doubled it.
With the understanding, one more thing. Some really, really impressive, important people have come out and said that they have ADHD. And
yes.
so the positive side of it, right? Like Simone Biles.
Yeah.
ADHD credits her training to like that ability to have that secret power of like hyperfocus, fixation, whatever you want to call it. Michael Phelps.
Yeah.
Greatest
so
swimmer of all
basically,
time.
you should have been an Olympic athlete. What the heck?
I mean, maybe that's the next career for you.
Yeah.
I think this career feels like a pretty important career.
Yeah.
I want to come back to the shame piece. I know we've said the word at least 3 times, and that's a bad word, and nobody likes that word.
No, it's really important.
But it feels so critical to the experience of anybody, child or adult, who is diagnosed with ADHD.
ADHD brains have this like all or nothing emotional high and low where it's very difficult to regulate, which we talk about a lot, and stay in the middle. So our shame is especially intense to the point that like people with ADHD often have something called rejection sensitive dysphoria, where it causes physical pain when you fail or when you are rejected or something goes
And
wrong.
something as small as like missing free throw shots in the game.
Yep.
And this is, a middle school basketball game that has zero consequence and, life goes on and nobody remembers it. It is like going to the bench, trying not to cry.
Your whole world
feels dark. Like that sort of darkness.
So how do we support the people we love around that? Because that sounds awful and also kind of static. Like that doesn't go away just because you have a name for it, right?
Yeah, the understanding helps. If you know that you're flooding, if you know like this is going to pass.
Yeah.
This is my brain. This is just how it works for me. It's going to get better. I've seen real improvements in my son in that sense.
No, and I would say even Penn, I can identify when he's getting overwhelmed. Obviously, he's, doesn't cry all the time. But I can tell if he's having a rough day and the overwhelm's coming. And like we just sit, we're like, okay, it's gonna be fine. We're just gonna like breathe through it. And tomorrow, by the time we get to tomorrow, this won't even matter.
Yeah.
So I think just having the experience, I would say, of getting through the uncomfortable, like sitting in the suck for a little bit and then getting through it.
Let's talk about this for 1 second before we go.
Yeah.
So what is your hope with the children's book?
I want kids to feel seen and heard and understood. I want them to know that there is not something fundamentally wrong with them and that they are not broken, but most importantly, that they're not alone. I think that there is a sense of belonging that comes with a club or a group of people who all have something in common. And so this is a clubhouse. The front page is a club. It's a treehouse, right?
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool treehouse. It's a little crazy, but everyone there has some of the same challenges, but also some of the same secret powers. So I want them to feel like they belong in this group. I want them to understand and be able to name some of the things that are tough for people with ADHD, like paying attention, interrupting, finishing tasks, getting sad and frustrated.
Right.
That's all in there. But then coming to grips with it, the next step is finding all of the upsides.
Right.
Because they do exist.
That was Penn and Kim Holderness, viral content creators. And I'm just going to say it, true artists. I hope my children are half as successful as they have grown to be with all of their ADHD super skills. Now, check out their book, All You Can Be with ADHD. And I want to tell you this. There's a lot that I'm taking away from today's conversation. Like a lot. I mean, let's just start with how cool it was to sit with 2 people whose work I find so remarkable. And as I think about my bigger takeaway for this week, it's that ADHD comes with shame. And in fact, we usually experience the shame long before we have the name ADHD. But the real opportunity, as we grow to know our brains better, is to let go of the shame and embrace the spicy, neurodivergent aspects of our brain that allow us to do powerful things. I mean, just think about the whole songs that arrive in Penn's head and how much worse the world would be if we didn't get to experience them. Okay, so we're going to talk about ADHD and everything it entails this week on Office Hours. I'll go live with our senior producer, Sarah Storm, just as I do every week at 3 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday afternoon. You can find us on the LinkedIn news page, or you can check the show notes. There'll be a link in there. And folks, if this episode was entertaining or helpful for you, I really hope you'll share it with a friend. It really helps other people find our community. Okay, that's it for this week. I'm Jessi Hempel. This was Hello Monday, and we will be right back here with you next Monday. Hello Monday is a production of LinkedIn News. Lolia Briggs and Rachel Karp produce our show. Sarah Storm is our senior producer, sound design and engineering by Asaf Gadron. Our theme music was composed just for us by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. Michaela Greer is a friend of the show forever. Kyle Ransom Walsh is editor-at-large of editorial graphics. Dave Pond is head of production and creative operations. Courtney Coop is head of original programming. Dan Roth is the editor-in-chief of LinkedIn. I'm Jessi Hempel, and this is Hello Monday. See you next week.